Sefer Shoftim. So today we will have an introduction, shtickle movie, to Sefer Shoftim, to know what the Sefer is all about. In Halachas Gedolos in Hilchas Taini steht, there is Chamisha Chumshe Torah and there is Shmoina Sifrei Nevi'im. Chamisha Chumshe Torah, we all know, Bereishi Shmois Vayikra Bamidbar Dvorim. Shmoina Sifrei Nevi'im is Yeshua, Shoftim, Shmuel, Malachim, Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Yecheskel, and Trei Osar, who is called one Novi for all practical purposes. Sefer Shoftim is the Sefer Hasheni Misifrei HaNevi'im. Because Sefer Rishon is Sefer Yeshua, and Sefer Shoftim is Sefer Sheni Midivrei HaNevi'im. Who wrote Sefer Shoftim? In Gemara, in Baba Basra, in Daf Yudal Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Shmuel Hanovi Kosav Sifrei v'Sefer Shoftim u'Megillas Rus. So the author of this Sefer is Shmuel Hanovi. Shmuel Hanovi, soon we'll see, who lived in the conclusion of Tkufas HaShoftim, writes Ma she'olso b'yamehem, as he states in Rashi in Baba Basra. Shmuel Hanovi writes Ma she'olso b'yamehem, the chronologies, hadevorim that happened throughout the entire Tkufa of the Shoftim. This is not such a happy Tkufa for Klal Yisrael. We'll soon see how long this Tkufa lasted, but this is when Yeshua ben Nun dies. As we know, Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter in Zion Odor, Beis Alofim, Tov Memches, 2448. I'm sorry, 2448. They went out of Mitzrayim, 2488, Peches. And Yeshua, besides one Shver Ramban al Torah, which has to deal with the Bryce of Seder Olam Rabbah, but throughout Chazal, and we'd like to stick to the gears of Bryce and the Seder Olam Rabbah, Yeshua Shofat es Yisrael Chovches Shona. So Yeshua ruled Klal Yisrael 28 years, which means in Tov Kuf Tes Zayin 2516, which is 28 years past Moshe Rabbeinu's P'tira, this is when Yeshua dies and the Tkufas HaShoftim begins. The whole Sefer Shoftim is in and out. Klal Yisrael is sinning. It's not such a happy Tkufa. Here and there are islands of light, but Klal Yisrael ish hayosho be'enov yaseh. The Gemara calls it Eze doir shekuloi hevel eveoimer ze Tkufas Shveit HaShoftim. This is Hakasha. The Gemara says in Shmura that Kol ha'eshkoyle she'omdu Yisrael mishemeis Yosef, mishemeis Moshe ad shemeis Yosef ben Ezer lohoyo b'hem shum doifi. How could you say that this is a tkufa of 350 years? Shekuloi hevel avolim, vosi hevel avolim. The hevel avolim is a tkufa HaShoftim. The Taisus Muchitzach, the Taisus says biyachas to the previous days, but of course there was still a tkufa shaloi hoya b'doifi. That's how Taisus would like to Muchitzach. The Steer Sagamora in Baba Basra and the Steer Sagamora in Maseches Tvura. Klal Yisrael, the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kufay with Beisel were nisatzel behespeda shel Yeshua. The reason why the nisatzel behespeda shel Yeshua steht in Gemara she'osku benachlosom verou bohem kol eilomim. They were osik in their nachlo as Yeshua dies. By the way, Yeshua begins the kibush of Eretz Yisrael, and there were 14 years, 7 years were they Makabish, and 7 years were Mechalik, and then they built Mishkan Shiur, lasted 14 years, and Yeshua ben Nun dies at the end of the 14th year of Mishkan Shiur. Yeshua was there for 2 Mishkanos. The Mishkan in Gilgal, which they came from Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael. They put the Mishkan in Gilgal, which was the Zman Abomis Mutoris, and then he built the Mishkan Shiloh, which is semi-Mikdash, semi-Mishkan, and that lasted for 369 years. Yeshua dies 14 years into Mishkan Shiloh, as we remember at the end of Sefer Yeshua. Yeshua takes the whole Olam into Mishkan Shiloh, and he gives him his whole tzavah. And Ish Hayosha Be'ein of Yasa, they started to work Avodah Zorah, to worship Avodah Zorah. Kadosh Baruch Hu shows them when the Shofet comes, and we'll soon see who are the Shoftim and how many Shoftim were there. The Shoftim comes, he has to be Miyasher Libam Lehavim Shebashamayim, that's Lashon Rashi, and bring it back b'tshuva, and then they get released from the several milchomes that they had at the time. Just to give a small hakdama, be'emes, they did not conquer and capture whatever they were supposed to. Throughout the whole period, by the way, in Chazal, in several places, in the Gemara, in the Sifri, in Braises, in Tosefta, Kedusha Rishayna is called Kibush Yeshua, and this Kibush Yeshua starts when Yeshua does himself the Kibush Oretz, until David HaMelech, who builds the Beis HaMikdash 440 years later. So this is called Kedusha Rishayna. It's called Kibush Oile Mitzrayim. 300 years later, it's still Kibush Oile Mitzrayim. And the reason for that being is because even in the Tkufa Yeshua, Klal Yisrael did not finish the job, and only several Shvatim and the others learned to live with the enemy. The Emoiri was there, the Knaini was there, Plishtim came into the picture, and the whole Sefer Shoftim goes in and out for all those enemies of Klal Yisrael who either lived together or started the Milchama. Each Shofet had to deal with a different one. And when Klal Yisrael's Yasu Arab Be'inei Hashem, we'll soon see, Klal Yisrael Yasu Arab Be'inei Hashem, Ad Kedei Kach, it's a Pella de Kazakh, and I think we brought it once. Shevet Don, when they went to conquer and to capture their part, right next 2.3 miles northeast of Mishkan Shiloh, they built a Bayis L'Avodah Zorah. They took a kohen and they built a Bayis L'Avodah Zorah. V'hoyu shtei timrois oshon oilois be'oisa azman. Somebody went to look at the horizon next to Mishkan Shiloh, so it was one timoiris, it's called timoiris, a smoke, a pillar of smoke, oilo from the oshon ha'ma'arocha, from the korbanis, which are called in Mishkan Shiloh, and in Howell, not far from here, 2.3 miles, is a Mishkan for Avodah Zorah, which everyone, not only that, they had barriers on the way. Somebody was going to Mishkan Shiloh, say, Avu Geitayid, where are you going to Mishkan Shiloh? No, come to us. We have a much better business class of Avodah Zorah. Who was the one who was the Kohen for Avodah Zorah, who was serving in this Mishkan, which is against Mishkan Shiloh? Nishmer Nishveiniger, Einakel from Moshe Rabbeinu. Yehoiason ben Gershom was the one who was the Kohen who was Oved L'Avodah Zorah, and somebody came to visit him and tells him, Einakel from Moshe Rabbeinu, Rebbe Einakel, that's what you do? And he tells him, Kach mikublani mibeis aviyabo lo'olam, a person should make Yaved Odom Avodah Zorah v'al tzarich labrias broch panusa. I need to have money to live on. My Zayda taught me Yaved Odom Avodah Zorah v'al tzarich labrias v'lohi. It's like more in Baba Basra and Daf Kuf Yud Amud Aleph. Avodah she'izorah, like you say, Pshet Nevilos Bashuk v'al tzarich labrias. Need parnasa, go work in the garbage compartment. Mishkin Kohen L'Avodah Zorah. And Yidi Tshuva, and in Divrei Hayomim, he's not already called Yehoiason ben Gershom, he's called Shvuel Sheshov Liboy L'Avim Shebashamayim V'ro David. David HaMelech saw, he lived all the way to Tkufas David, that the Rot Lib Geld, Omad V'mino Al Oitzros, he made him into the finance minister for David HaMelech Oitzros. Oh, but this is a side. Here we're starting a whole Tkufa, and soon we're going to see who are the Shoftim. And I would like to review, to give you a score, before we get into the Psukim, to review with you who are the Shoftim. I want you to listen very carefully. You only brought one page. I don't believe. Is it another page? Okay, without the other page we'll do. The first Shofet, I would like to review with you in Beskiro Achas, the Shoftim. The first Shofet was Osniel ben Kenaz lemata Yehuda. He was the younger brother of Kolev ben Yefuneh. Gemara state, Chorge de Knaz, Osniel ben Kenaz was a brother of Kolev ben Yefuneh. He ruled for 32 years. He was a Talmud of Yeshua ben Nun. State in Psukim really that he ruled 40 years, the Tkufa less than 40 years, but that includes the Shmoyne Shnois HaShibud of Kushan Rishosayim, we're going to see it soon. So his actual, the first, there was 8 years, Kushan Rishosayim versus Ha'enekul, Ha'ur Azun, Efer Aleim, of Bilam HaRosha. And the Ha'enekul of Bilam is Kushan Rishosayim, who is giving tzoros to Klal Yisrael right after the Ptire of Yeshua ben Nun. Osniel ben Kenaz, after those 8 years, he is the one who conquered, and he is the one who rules thereafter for 32 years. Now, who is this Osniel ben Kenaz? In Psukim it says it's called Yehuda Achi Shimoin. Yehuda Achi Shimoin, because he was from Shevet Yehuda. We know that Kolev ben Yefuneh was a Shevet Yehuda, so is his brother Osniel ben Kenaz. And he was Mekarev Shevet Shimon. Shevet Shimon really didn't have a Nachal in Bnei Yisrael. They dwelled within Shevet Yehuda. So Shimon, Yehuda Achi Shimon is Osniel ben Kenaz. He has another 2 names. We have to know it because we're going to learn the Psukim, we're going to deal with it. He has one more name, Ya'avetz, stating Gemara in Tmura Daf Zayin, Sheyoatz v'ribeitz Toiro b'Yisrael, and he's called Osniel mipnei she'ano'oi el. Kodesh Baruch Hu answered him. By the way, we spoke about this Gemara several times. State that shloish meis aloches, shloishes alofim aloches, 1700 kal v'chomer nishtachu b'mei evloi shel Moshe. V'kulam echziron Osniel ben Kenaz befilpuloi. Osniel ben Kenaz was machzir ben befilpuloi, and for the Rain at the Bakumen Amatone, because Kolev said he had a daughter, it was called Achso. More state she was for the Noshim Yofis Shaba'ilam, and he promised whoever is going to be Loiched Kiryas Sefer, which the Gemara Darshan doesn't mean the city of Kiryas Sefer, but it means the halacha shenishtachu b'mevlo shel Moshe, v'nosati lo es biti achso leisha. So as we see right now, Kolev Yifun the Chabrider gemacht a Rebbe Sheshidach within the Mishpocha, that he marries his brother's daughter. Osniel ben Kenaz, who is a brother of Kolev Yifun, marries Achso bas Kolev. She marries her uncle, who is a Geisha Talmid Chochem, and she comes to her father. She says, "Akoling he doesn't know for rechts, the right. He doesn't know how to make business. Father gave her gulis ilis, gulis tachtis." And here's the mokum. But he is the first shofet. He is the one who bails him out of Kushal Rishasayim, and he is the one who ruled for 32 years. The next shofet, I would just like to before we starting. The next shofet, somebody called Ehud ben Gero. Ehud ben Gero was from Shevet Binyamin. He was shofet 62 years. Why? Because there was 18 shnois hashibud, and 62 years was after the shibud. In all the countdown, besides by one place, when it says Shofat Shmoinim Shona means together with the shnois hashibud, it's 18 shnois hashibud and 62 years. Ehud ben Gero, he was Mekabel Teufel Osniel Bechnas. He made a cherev who had 2 pipios, and he is the one who killed Egloin Melech Moav. We'll see. The third shofet was somebody who was shofet 1 year. He was called Shamgor ben Anos. Shamgor ben Anos, who is mentioned in Shiras Dvoira, he was shofet as Israel 1 year. The next shofet, he was, by the way, Shamgor ben Anos was Mata Levi. Wer zogti wer Mata Levi? In the Barbanel, because Rashi in Sukkah in Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Ein lecha kol shevet v'shevet shelo emik shofet. Rashi starts going through the shoftim, and he says, Shamgor ben Anas lo yadati shem shivtoi shel Shamgor. Or Barbanel zogta gever b'shevet Levi, Where is his source? I don't know. I know I have a source of Barbanel. Barbanel said that Shamgo ben Anos was Yeshevet Levi, Rashi steht der Weiß nicht. The next one was a joint venture of a husband and a wife. It turned to be, according to some Shittas in Chazal, husband, Barak ben Avinoyam from Shevet Naftali, and Dvoiro Isha Nevio, she was from Shevet Ephraim. She married him, and they ruled 20 years, It says, Vatishkoit ha'oretz arboim shon at the end of Shiras Dvoira, but again, it includes the 20 years of the Shibud. So, Baruch ben Avinoyam, and Ishgven Kagoysa Talmid Chochem steht in Gemara, but she sent him on a mission. She was an Isha Neviyah. She was exception to the rules. The only time we find the Isha could be Shefetes. And the Gemara Muchitzach with them, and Etlach Sugyas and Shas, Tesis, the Steers and Tesis, was a Ruasho, was Kiblu Aleim, whatever it is. She was Saya Neviyah, steht in Pasuk Kloria, V'dvoiro Isha Neviyah, the Gemara in Megillah that counts the 48 Nevi'im and the 7 Nevi'as, She'omru L'Yisrael, Dvoiro is one of the 7 Nevi'as. And together they rule. There's a Isha and there's a Shefet, that steht in Pasuk, V'yishevto Yisrael Ba'Yisrael, she said, Tachas Toimer, wouldn't be a Shayla of Yichud, but she is the one. They are called together, the two Shoftim together called a Shoftim Arevim, in Radak, in all the Ralbag, in all the Moine HaShoftim Lemineim. They are both ruling together, the husband and the wife, and they are the one who have the Baal Klal Yisrael from Yovin, who was the Melech Knan, and Isar Tzovo was called Sisra. The whole two prokim in Sefer in beginning, in Dalet Hey, for Sefer Shoftim are dealing with the Milchemes Yovin, was a major Milchama, Milchemes Yovin and Milchemes Sisra with Klal Yisrael. She, Barak ben Avinoyam, he calls in a few Shvatim, they come into the Milchama, they make a Milchama, and Vatishke Toretz Arboim Shon. The next Shofet, who is called the Shofet HaChamishi, was Gideon ben Yoyosh. He was an Einikel, a sixth generation from Yoir ben Menashe. He was a Rebbe Einikel. His father was a Oikoimel Lavedazor. So this Gideon ben Yoyash was Shofet es Yisrael Arboim Shono. The Rambam, which also doesn't have any Mekor, the Rambam in Moira Nevuchim says that Gideon was a Novi. V'hoison nevuosoi b'madrega harevis mimadregas hanevuah. The Rambam counted the several madregas in madregas hanevuah, and Gideon reached the 4th madrega. He was skeptic. First Klal Yisrael came, and there was a terror. If you think the Palestinians invented the terror, they were terrorists. What do? The Midyanim used to come in, and they used to be mashchis, the Yevul ha'aretz. They figured, you want to hit them, don't fight with them. Go ahead and empty the panusa. So they used to go ahead either gazel or burn the fields or take for the behemoths. They did not leave any Yevul, no agriculture left in the entire 3.5 or 4 Shvatim Toli and Machlikas Rishonim, and this was the terror. He became a shofet. It's the only time we find that the one who appointed him for a shofet was a malach. The malach comes over to him. Shaila, who was the malach? Gideon did not see himself roy for shlichus. He didn't know if it was a fake news or not. He needed authentication code, and he asked Kodesh Baruch Hu to give him he had a few probes, a few nisyonis to prove that he really was sent, that this malach is a malach, and he's really sending him. After he verified the shlichus was Midah Shamayim, he became Edom. Now he took with him an army of 300 people. This is the only 300 people that he found was Leikoru Labal, were not Oived Avodah Zorah, and he was Menatzeach Midian. Midian was a question how many Midian were then. According to the Yalkut, there were between 30 and 40,000 soldiers fighting against 300 soldaten, which they call Labal of Gideon ben Yoash. They win the war and Givon Shtil. He's not called only Gideon, he has another name, Yerubal. Yerubal is because he was Menatetz, a Meshaber, the Baal Avodah Zarah. So his tafkid was dual. Number one, he was a shofet, but he won the war against the Midyadim, and in the brachas of Yankov Avinu, when he benches his son Yosef, he says, V'gam hu yeh le'am, v'gam hu yigdal. Rashi says, Bola Rames, when he tells him, V'gam hu yigdal, when he benches Yankov Avinu is Mevorech, Yosef with Ephraim and Menashe, when they come in, Zokt Rashi, Nisnabe al Gideon she'osid lotzes mimenu. So Yankov Avinu in Zayin Brocha already makes a nevuah about this Shefet, which is called Gideon ben Yoash. Vehem rivevois Ephraim, vehem alfa Menashe, Zokt Rashi, this is Gideon. So Gideon is not so poshet. Not too many Sheftim are mentioned in Brochos in the previous Torah. Is Remes for the Sheftim. The Remes is of Sai Yankov Avinu and Sai Moshe Rabbeinu in the Brochos are giving the Brochos, so you should be zoiche that your descendants are going to be Gideon ben Yoash, who was a Shefet, who was a Novi, who was Mishias Yisrael. Gideon had a Pilegesh, and he had a wife, but he had a Pilegesh, and from the Pilegesh he had a son, and the son was called Avimelech. And this Avimelech was a Rosha Merusha. Questioning how is he called the Shefet? It could be Shefet Arosha. We'll deal with it. We'll be too sure about how Avimelech becomes a Shefet of Klal Yisrael. But he, if you think the Rebbe Shemachlekas and Ungehoben in this generation, he killed all of Gideon's children. The question how many children Gideon had. He killed all the children of all his brothers were killed, besides one brother was called Yoisom, who was hiding in the Machabe, couldn't get hold of him. But Gideon had the son Avimelech, who was a Russia. He killed all his siblings, all his brothers, in order to be the only king, the only ruler, and nobody should chep him with the Rebbe. It's a moyer kazach because we don't find in Sheftim, in Melachim, there is a din Melech ben Melech. Melech ben Melech and Tzorich Meshiche. There is, it goes down, we'll see the next year the difference between Sheftim and Melachim, but Melech is different than a Shefet. But Shefet does not go down by Yerusha. There is no Yerusha by Sheftim. So, why is that? And he takes Gideon, who was a Novi, and takes his son, and he obviously was with his consent, or with his endorsement. He takes a son who is a Rosh, who kills all his brothers, and he becomes the ruler. Akopani, who was a Shefet for 3 years. The next, those are all from Menashe. The next Shefet was the Shefet Hashvi, was Toila ben Fu'o. He was B'Shevet Yisachar, and he ruled Klal Yisrael.
Who was 3 years? Gideon or son?
Gideon was, we said, Gideon was Arboim Shana. His son Avimelech for 3 years. The Shefet Hashvi, Toila ben Fu'o, was Mishevet Yisachar, and he was Shefet es Yisrael 23 years. Esrim v'shol Shana. He, although he was from Shevet Yisachar, he lived in Har Ephraim. There's a shtot called Shamir, and that's in Har Ephraim. In other words, he didn't live in the Nachla where he came from, which is a separate Mikzoya Bifnei Atzmai. Not only did he live there, but when he died, he was buried in Shamir, in Har Ephraim, even though he is a Shefet Mishevet Yisachar. The next Shefet, again, we're going back to Menashe, Yoir Agil Odi. Yoir Agil Odi, he was Mishias Yisrael. It doesn't say who was the enemy at the time of it. Sometimes the Navi specifies who was the specific enemy. Sometimes it doesn't specify. And he was Shefet es Yisrael 22 years. So the truth of the matter is that if you take the 23 and the 22, you should come to 45. But instead, the Brisa, the Seder Olam Rabbah counts them both as 44 because he ruled 22 and a half and he ruled 22 and a half. One is 22 and 7 months, and one is 22 and 5 months. But the Lamaisa was a Shona, which is Oil Lakan Velakan. Therefore, it's counted only as 44 years. He had 30 sons. All the 30 sons is Yad Lebedik had 30 horses, and each one of them built a shtot. He had a shtot for each one of his sons. He had 30 kinder. The kid, by the way, Chavois Yoyer, which we know in the Torah, Chavois Yoyer, Be'eretz Agilod, that was the nachlo of the kinder from Yoyer Hagilodi Mishevet Menashe. he was the wealthiest shofet amongst the 15 shoftim that Klal Yisrael had. The ninth one is a very unique and phenomenal one. We know him. People that even don't know Nach, but know him from the Haftarah. Yiftach HaGil'odi, again from Shevet Menashe. Shevet Menashe was zeichet to many of the shoftim. He was the one who was Matzliach to be Moshiach Yisrael, Sam for the Plishtim and Sai from Bnei Amoin. He was a shofet for 6 years. The reason why Ziknei Gil'od made him into, if you know the Haftarah, V'yiftach HaGil'odi or Gibor Chayil, V'hu Ben Isha Zaino, he was a Gibor Chayil, and they took him as a Gibor Chayil. And steht Vaytehi al Yiftach Ruach Hashem. Vaysteis Ruach Hashem, according to Abarbanel, according to Radak, is also some kind of dreg of Nevuah, but at least of Ruach HaKodesh. This is Yiftach al Yil'odi. Now, if you take a look, if you have a Sefer Shoftim, anybody does, ever doesn't have, Yiftach HaGil'odi has a conversation, a dialogue, who he wanted to go to Melech Bnei Amoin, and he says, let's make peace. Let's resolve it between us. Let's open up the books and see who is against who is that. So he tells them, I'm reading a pasuk that steht in Perik Yud Aleph in Shoftim, Besheves Yisrael becheshbeinu bivneiseu, be'arro bivneiseu, bechol ha'orim asher al yedei arnoin. It says, Shleish me'ois shono. Shleish me'ois shono. Umadua lo yitzaltem ba'isai. What are you, was hast du gewartet 300 Jahre? So here is a mention of the Shleish me'ois shono. This is not Bais that said the Olam Rabbah. This is Shmuel Hanavi writes in Sefer Shoftim. Zogt Rashi, Mishakov Soros b'mei Yeshua ad Yiftach. Mekan yesh lilmoid shnois ha-shoftim. Ad einim shnei ha-shibut shel kol umo nimnim b'toich yimei ha-shoftim lav. Sharei b'sad ha'olam maninu Yeshua pirdes Yisrael 28 shana ve'en li mikro mimi limnod osniel arboim v'shnei kushel rishosayim bichlolom achov eud 18 shana shibut shel egel b'soichom arei kuf memches. It's 148. Rashi makes the math. Dvoiro mem shono v'shnei shibud yomim b'soichom. It's another arei kuf peiches is 188. Achov sheva shonim sheshibud medium v'arboim shel Gideon v'shol shel Avimelech arei reish lamet ches is 238. Achov chov gimel shel toilo v'chov beis shel yoyer elo sheshono achas also lishneim. It brings the biases to the oilam. V'yutches shel bnei Amoin ad shelo bo yiftach areim shleish moisham. Exactly 300 years, but the 300 years is starting from, he includes also Yeshua. We don't include Yeshua in the Shoftim. The 300 years, he said, from Yeshua ruling until today, is 300, exactly 300 years for. If we take off Yeshua, we miss him, we have 278, but we are not finished with the Shoftim. We are not finished with the Shoftim because we have, after the Yiftach HaGil'odi, there was a shofet called Ivtzan from Beis Lechem. Does anybody know who Ivtzan was? Boyaz. According to the Gemara in Baba Basra of Tzadik Aleph Amud Aleph, Ivtzan is Boyaz. Boyaz was Shevet Yehuda, Shofat et Yisrael Sheva Shon. I always like to say it, and I would like everybody here, really in the house, to know it. Avrom, Yitzchak, Yankev, Yehuda, Peretz and Zerach, Peretz, Oilides, Chetzron, and so Rom, Oilides, Aminodov, leaders, Nachshen had 4 children. One of them was Salmon, Avimelech, Avinoimi, the girl, the plain Almani, and Salmo, or the Salmon Avi Boyaz. Boyaz, and then Oived, Yishai, David. This is the 14 days from Avram Avinu to David HaMelech. Bal Koponim, Ivtzon, with the pasuk does not say he's Boyaz. The Gemara says Ivtzon's a Boyaz, and you're Shofet Arboim Shon. Let me tell you a few things about Boyaz. I don't know if you really know. Boyaz had 60 children, 30 sons and 30 daughters, and by the way, that's not including Oived, which he had with Rus. If we're putting him together, in other words, from his first wife, and And according to some Yalkut, he had 4 wives. I mean, he had 60 children. Apparently, he didn't have it from one wife. Could be he had, it could be 30 sons and 30 daughters. And he made 120 mishtois. He made 120 mishtois. Mora says he made for 60 when they got engaged. Rashi learns when he got engaged. They made Sudas Eiros and Sudas Nisuim. So 2 for each one. For 60 is 120. So we showed Rabbeinu Gershom. Rabbeinu Gershom said that he made the mishtois he made b'shor shenoldu. And this is a riot to make a kiddush for a daughter. It's the only time where the state he made shenoldu, so by his sons, his bris, by their daughters, v'idom mishtois. So he made a kiddush for the daughters. All the 160 children died b'chayev. He didn't have one child left. And the Gemara says, what was the einish? Because Manoach, who was the father of Gideon, he did not have any children. He said, Adne Kudme is a okar. He said, I'm going to invite him for my chasnas. In the 20 mishtoes, ich habe schicken 120 chasna brieflach mit Erosin. And what is he going to repay me? Nothing. He has no children. So, be'oinish that he did not invite Manoach to his chasanes, he lost all of them. Ober ba'erev al tanach yadecho, be'ezi knuso he did a chesed with Rus. This shidduch lasted for one night. David Melech Yisrael, Mashiach ben David, comes out from this marriage. So a person could be the king of the world, he could have 60 kids, he was a oisher, gemacht, in the 20 banketten, he loses everything. And right before he's nifta, by the way, how old was Manoach is also a question. It's a very right range. How old was Boaz? Was Boaz Bishas when he married Rus? It could be anywhere from 80 to 350 years of age. But the marriage lasted one night, and from Dalton komt Mashiach Mashiach ben David the Goy Elazid. So he was the 10th one. The 11th one was Eiloin Fishevet Zvulun. He was for 10 years. The 12th one was Avdim ben Hillel Fishevet Ephraim. He was 8 years. And by the way, he had 40 children. Somebody the Shoftim he had, the pasuk says he has 40 children and 30 grandchildren. Today it's the other way around. And they use Shivim Ayorim. They use 70 Ayorim is a Jungerfeld. He used them for this, and then when he used to come out of the house, used to be 70 people escorting him as a Pamalia from the Shofet. And the Radak says it got so viel Kinder, given so reich, he didn't have to do any agriculture, it got business auf der Seite, the given anoisha. The last Shofet in this Sefer Shoftim is Shimshon ben Manoach lemate Dan. Shimshon is a story. He was Shofet 20 years. He is also mentioned in the Torah. I said before, Don Yodin Amoy Ke'achad Shiftei Yisrael. A few words about Shimshon. His mother's name is Slalfoinis, as I state in the Gemara in Baba Basra. In Psuki Midivayom, she's called Hatzlalfoini. She was a Korah, and according to the Malach, he told her not to eat wine and not to eat grapes, not to drink wine. And Shimshon was a Nazir min habeten. Why? State in the Gemara, why was he Nazir min habeten? State in Medrash, Golui hoyo lakadosh baruch hu sheshimshon yechte be'enov, holach achareinov, lefichach hi ziroi benazir shelo yishte yain, ki hayain meivi lidei zima. Okay? ומה בזמן שהויו נוזיר הולך אחר עינוב, אם אילו היה יוישה יין הלך אז כמה וכמה לא הויו תקונה לא אילו. אז זה שתית in Medrash in Parshas Nasi. Anyhow, he became a Shofet, and from his Gvura, he was a Mishunadike Gibor, Shimshon HaGibor, he saves Klal Yisrael from Plishtim. He is Zoiche 4 times for Ruach Gvura. We have to know what this Ruach Gvura means, Hashem. 4 times was Batonach Olav Ruach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And after he was such a Gibor, and he made such a fear, such a Pachat, that afterwards the Plishtim ruhig given the next 20 year after he died, Thomas Nafshin Plishtim is 20 years. So these are the 13 Shoftim who are mentioned in Sefer Shoftim. Afterwards, there is other 2 Shoftim which are not mentioned in Sefer Shoftim. The mention in the next Sefer is Sefer Shmuel. The next Shofet is Eli HaKohen. So Meisra HaTorah, we spoke about him last week. Eli HaKohen will live 98 years. And his Talmid, Shmuel Anovi, who lived for 52 years. They are counted as part of the 15 Shoftim which were here. Al Kaponim, this is the Tkufa of the Shoftim. One more short scope for the Maisa. The Sefer is divided to 3 different chalot. The first chelik of Sefer Shoftim is a hemshech of Sefer Yeshua of Kibush Eretz Yisrael, but not in the positive sense of Kibush Oretz, but versus in the negative. That Roiv Shifte Yisrael, state the world, the Radak puts it down, Nisrashlu b'mitzvah gdoilo zu. They say in English, fanach leisik. They gave up, they were misrashel, they were lazy in the mitzvah of Kibush Oretz. The only Shvotim that got together to really conquer and finish the job was Yehuda and Shimon. They were started, Yehuda was kovish throughout, we'll see Sefer Shoftim, the Ir HaKodesh Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was conquered. Not all of Yerushalayim, there's part of the Yevusi, there was part of Yerushalayim, Migdal David, which was not conquered till David HaMelech Sidon, because there was a Shvuah from Avimelech and Plishtim. There wasn't Avram Avinu and Avimelech, he says, in Tishko Elila, Nila, Nechdi, there were parts of Yerushalayim that they couldn't conquer. But the main city of Yerushalayim, the peripheries of Yerushalayim, was Nichbash, Al Yedei Yehuda. The other Shvotim, Osher, Dan, Naphtali, Zvulun, Ephraim, and Menashe, the 6 Shvotim, even though they could have finished conquering their places, they said, as long as we see in the Psukim, they pay us taxes, we can void in Sevisha the Goy. The whole Perek Aleph is finished in the Pasuk Ugvula and Moiri, that Chelek from Eretz Yisrael was Nishar B'Yidei and Moiri. They know the Shiva Amamin, Knaini, and Moiri is one of them, and the Moiri remained. In other words, Yeshua Benin did the job, a main job, but there were pockets of resistance which were there, and Yeshua did not finish the job. He told the Shvotim to go on weiter, and they did not do the job throughout the Sefer Shoftim. The reason why Klal Yisrael is engaged with so much of a desire throughout Sefer Shoftim is since they didn't finish the Melul, they didn't finish the Kibush, Mele, the Hashpah from the Umas Oilam, of all those Moiri, Knani, whoever was there, the Midyanim, the Plishtim, they all I don't want to say intermarried, even though there is a mention of intermarriage in Sefer Shoftim Al Kaponim. The head Shlecht Hashpor and Klal Yisrael started being Ovid of the Zohar, and that's where they were getting the Tzoros, the Shofet came, the Dijuva, and so on and so forth. That's the first part of Sefer Shoftim, which is basically Perek Aleph. Perek Beis from Pasuk Vov starts from the whole 13 Shoftim that I just mentioned before, start from Osniel ben Kenaz going through Perek Yud Beis, Perek Tezayin, where he's talking about Shimshon HaKippur. And the third part of these, a part of Sefer Shoftim, which is very controversial. And the part of these 2 stories at the end of Sefer Shoftim, which are diversified over 5 prokim, Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, Yud Tes, Chof, Chof Aleph in Sefer Shoftim. And they're talking about 2 occurrences. One occurrence is Pesel Micho, which is a whole story b'fnei atzmai. And the second story is a story of Pilegish Bagiva of Shevet Binyamin, which Kimat, the entire Shevet Binyamin, was eradicated from Klal Yisrael. Both of them are reasons for not, the way they're Rishonim learning, for not being Kovish Eretz Yisrael and fulfilling the mitzvah that Yeshua ben Nun gave them. Those are the 2 stories. Just want to mention that the truth of the matter is that most Rishonim hold, based on Chazal, that these 2 stories of Pesel Micha and of Pilegish Bagiva, a story that took place right at the beginning after Moshe Yeshua ben Nun, in the times of Kush and Rishatayim. It's only parked at the end of Sefer Shoftim, but chronologically, historically, these stories, as they learned the Hadak, as they learned the Hashem as Midrashim, the story of Pesel Micho and the story of Pilegish Bagiva, which are two tragic occurrences in the history of Klal Yisrael, right in the Knesset Teretz Yisrael, happened right at the beginning after the Moisei Shua Binun. The only other learned that it really happened at the end of Sefer Shoftim. Yeh Mashiach, just to wrap it up, I'm sorry we never got to the paper, but just to wrap it up, we have a Sefer which describes the history of Klal Yisrael from the time of Moisei Shua Binun in 2516 for the next 327 years, if we knock off Yeshua, till the end, after Shimshon HaGibor's death. And it talks about Klal Yisrael. This is a time, the whole time is, we're talking about Mishkan Shiloh, because after Mishkan Shiloh we have Noiv and Gideon for 57 years to collectively, 44 and 13, and only afterwards we're going to have Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. So we're here right now. We have to know in the background the Mishkan is a Mishkan Shiloh. In the background is another Mishkan of Avodah Zorah. The 13 Shoftim, which are Shoftim, Ruach Hashem, Giborim, Judges, and we're going to see the difference. What is the difference between Shoftim and Melachim? And that's the next topic we're going to talk about. What is the difference between the Shofet and the Melech? Why is this Sefer called Shoftim? And after Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Beis, we finished the story of Shmuel and David. We started the Kufa of Melachim, and we have the Malchus Yisrael, Malchus Yehuda throughout history. Why is this Shoftim and this Melachim? Why is there a Melech? Why is the first Melech being crowned by Shmuel Anovi only 350 years after? Shloisha mitzvahs and stav Yisrael b'knisas l'oretz. One of them is state la'achizar shalamol l'manas ha'melech la'achizar shalamol l'kavizos beis habchira. Why is that being procrastinated? Why do we have a tkufa of nearly 400 years, 350 years? The Klal Yisrael is not b'maimid melech. That the Mirz Hashem we're going to see in the next year.